All right, so for this video, we're gonna look at something called fraction busters. What we're looking to do here ultimately is when we have fractions in an equation, we're gonna get rid of all the denominators and the fractions at once. But before we get to that, I wanna remind you of something right here. So recall, if we're multiplying or if we're dividing an equation, you must multiply all the terms to retain equivalence. So what I mean by that is you have to multiply every single term for the equation to still be equal. For the left side of the equal sign to equal the right side of the equal sign. So I want to show you that with an example here. I will get to this example, but to show you why we have to do this, I'm going to use an easy example like 2 plus 2 equals 4. So if I have 2 plus 2 equals 4, and for some reason I want to multiply one of these numbers by 3. Well, you know that we would have to multiply the other side of the equation by 3. But we also have to multiply this other term right here by 3. And the reason for that is, if we come down a line, 3 times 2 is 6. The other side of the equation would now read as 12. 4 times 3 is 12. Well, if I didn't multiply and I just brought down this 2, 6 plus 2 is not equal to 12. But if I multiply 2 times 3, I get another 6. And notice we maintain the equivalence here. These are still equals. The left side of the equation, left side of the equal sign, 6 plus 6 is equal to 12. So for that, with that in mind, if you were to say multiply this equation by 2 to get rid of the denominator here, you would have to multiply each one of the terms by 2. What this would look like up here, these 2's would cancel out. They would make 1. 2 divided by 2 is 1. This would just leave x. 5 times 2 is 10. And over here, 25 times 2 is 50. And then, of course, you know how to solve that equation. So the rest of that equation there, you could subtract 10, and that would give us x equals 40. You could check that example by plugging 40 back in there, but we're not going to do that right now. Okay. So that leads us to fraction busters. This is sort of like a mini version of fraction busters. But this is actually what you're going to be able to do. So if you have multiple fractions to eliminate from an equation, you're going to multiply all the terms by a common denominator. So let's look at an example here. Here I have 1/2 x plus 3/4 equals 1/8. I have these three fractions. I'm going to worry about the constants and the coefficients all together for this one. So to get rid of all of these denominators, I'm going to multiply everything by a common denominator. And a common denominator for these three would be 8. So I'm going to multiply by 8. I'm going to go ahead and just do it times 8 by each one. And let's see why this is going to help us here. So, you know what? For the sake of this one, I'm going to go ahead and multiply each one of them. So 8 times 1 would give me 8 over 2x, plus 3 times 8 would be 24 over 4, and this, of course, would be 8 over 8. Now, you'll be able to skip this step going forward once you get comfortable with it, because you'll see as we go down another line, we're going to divide each of these by the denominator. So 8 divided by 2 is 4x, 24 divided by 4 is 6, and 8 divided by 8 is 1. What you'll be able to do going forward is you'll just be able to cancel out here and say, okay, 2 goes into 8 4 times. 4 goes into 8 twice, and I multiply by 3 to get 6. 8 goes into 8 once. 1 times 1 is 1. From here, we can just solve the equation like you know how. I'll just do that very quickly. We would subtract 6 from both sides, giving you 4x equals -5, and you divide both sides by 4. To get that x should be -5 over 4. Sorry, I went off the screen a little bit there. All right, let's try another one. So looking here, now we have a variable on both sides. This is where it's actually a little more necessary to use this method, but I wanted to show you another one first. So what's our common denominator here? Should be 15. We're going to multiply everything by 15, and I'll show you how you can do the cross-canceling as you go. So starting here, what I'm going to do to simplify is I'm going to divide 3 into 15. It goes 5 times. So I have 5 in my numerator, and I multiply that by the current numerator. So 5 times -2 is -10x. We'll do the same here. 5 goes into 15 3 times. 3 times 1 is just 3. And the last one, 5 goes into 15 3 times. 3 times 4 gives me 12x. And now we solve just like we know how. In this case, I need to get all the variables over to this side, so I'm going to add 10x to both sides. That'll leave me with 3 on the left, and on the right here we have 22x. Finally, divide both sides by 22. And 3 over 22 is equal to x. So that's what Fraction Busters is. We're finding a common denominator for all the fractions. If we multiply every single term by that common denominator, we wipe out the fractions, and then we just solve like you've been solving all last week. All right, good luck.